They sent a first responder to my door. He actually said to me, "You're not going to die within the next 24 hours. Well, I would have died within the next 48 hours. I'm Trudi and I was 52 when I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. I had had 2 weeks holiday from work, and like everybody in February, I was pale and I was tired, and as soon as I stopped work I got a throat infection. But those things have happened to me lots of times before. I didn't especially think anything out of the ordinary about it. On top of that, I realised as the days progressed that I could barely get off the sofa, that every time I went upstairs to the toilet I had to sit down. I nearly collapsed. I knew I was breathing faster than normal. I wasn't really eating. I'd started to vomit. Some of that was kind of coffee ground, looked a bit blood-like. I just knew something really wasn't right. But because I am a nurse, my background is a nurse, I was really worried about sepsis because it's always in the media at the moment and it's something we worry about as nurses and doctors. So I phoned up the GPs and we agreed a course of antibiotics for what we both thought was probably a really nasty tonsillitis. And that was on the Friday. And I got through the weekend feeling just as terrible. I could barely get off my sofa. Definitely not eating, just really, really feeling ill. Phoned the doctors again on Monday, but I said that I really need to be seen. There's something that isn't right. So I went to see the doctor and the doctor said, "Oh yes, your throat is bad. There is, you've got your glands up. I'll add in clarithromycin, another antibiotic." And I insisted on a blood test because I was worried about sepsis. Well, I got home, I was vomiting on the way home, which again isn't like me at all. I couldn't get to the doctors on my own, people had to take me. And it's only when you sit back and you start thinking, hang on, this just isn't right. I haven't got off the sofa for 6 days. I'm not eating, I'm vomiting, my throat's really swollen, my pulse is up, things are not right. So I phoned the doctor back and he agreed I needed to go in for admission to something was not right. I didn't want to go and wait in A&E for hours and hours and hours. So between us, we both thought an ambulance route would be the best route in. They sent a first responder to my door who took one look at me and I was still on the sofa. My daughter was with me at this time, but I know he thought, "You look like a fit, normal, healthy adult." He actually did say to me, "You're not going to die in the next 24 hours. And in fact, I would have died in the next 48 hours if I hadn't got into hospital at that point." And he left. So I went back to my GP out of hours service as soon as it opened at 6:30 that evening. Saw a GP there who thought maybe I had glandular fever, which again seemed very weird at this stage of my life, but he wasn't sure and the bloods still weren't back. So I started to come home again and was called back in, unbeknown to me that the bloods were back by then. It was a colleague who diagnosed me because I do work for the out of hours service. And then when he told me, he just reached out to hold my hand and said, "I'm so sorry, Trudi, it looks like it's leukemia." And I remember feeling upset for him because I knew that he was upset. And so I remember almost thinking, "Oh, don't worry, don't worry. I'll be all right. Don't worry," because I didn't want him to be upset. And still does make me feel a bit choked thinking about it because it really is a moment when your whole world just changes.